as our top spy, ASIO boss Mike Burgess prefers to do his work away from the public gaze. But tonight he wants every Australian to see and hear his message. It's one that couldn't be clearer. Burgess says now is the most dangerous time we've experienced in the last 50 years. Our enemies are everywhere. And unless we all start taking the nation's security seriously, we're in for a world of pain.
For me, it's your heart breaks when you see these youngsters who get caught up in violence and they don't understand how this is bad and they're just so caught up in it.
It's not every day you get to see the boss of Australia's spy agency, Mike Burgess, so raw and personal. How young are some of these extremists and how are they radicalising?
So we've seen as young as 12, but
it's a bitter reality, but Australia is now spawning homegrown, baby-faced terrorists. And the situation is so serious, ASIO's Director General says we all need to know about it.
They don't have the ideology. They're really just trapped in the violence. We've got to figure out how that's happening and how we can moderate that and redirect those young minds so the damage isn't done.
You're not just the Director General of ASIO, you're a parent. Why are these young people as young as 12 becoming so radicalised so quickly?
Look at social media. You can go within 3 clicks from something which might be about what it means to be a man to something which is violently misogynist and completely unhelpful for an adolescent mind that's looking for connection and meaning. We've got to do better. I just want help from big tech to actually recognise that's a problem and how we can stop this violent extremist material or this harmful material rapidly being presented to young minds.
You said ASIO stopped 5 plots in the last year. What did those terror plots involve?
Almost all of them involved minors. Almost all of them involved people who went to violence more quickly than we've ever seen before.
Give me, if you can, one example, at least broadly, what were they doing?
So we have youngsters who are plotting to actually do something in the schoolyard or plotting to stab someone.
Had these plots been carried out, what would the impact have been? Are we talking multiple casualties, deaths?
In most cases, there would have been people killed, yes. Not mass casualty, but in most cases, people would have died.
Mid-last week, Mike Burgess delivered the most evocative and disturbing threat assessment of his 6-year reign. What's the primary defence target of overseas spooks targeting Australia?
AUKUS in particular. It's a major investment, significantly new capability for Australia, nuclear-propelled submarines. We've already seen many nations actually look at targeting that, and they are very active in this space.
Australian defence officials have been targeted by overseas spies. How? And how did you catch them?
Well, it comes a number of ways. So we've had recently a number of defence personnel visiting overseas and they were given gifts, and those gifts had concealed surveillance devices. So that's one way you can put a microphone in and listen to what someone's saying, and you don't know that. So that's my way of getting secrets.
It almost seems a bit Maxwell Smart-esque, concealed listening devices in a gift. Can you give us some more detail about the gifts and how you uncovered these devices?
No, I won't give you detail about the gifts, but of course, buy the book, and officers know this in the ADF, they certainly do in my organisation. One, you don't really accept gifts. If you do accept a gift, it gets scanned and it's easy to find. Of course, some people may not do that. Defence officials have access to privileged information, and there are multiple nations who are hungry for that sort of information to understand our military capabilities, what their weaknesses are, so they can use that to their advantage.
When it comes to threats, ASIO is overworked. Burgess says one of the biggest concerns is organised crime, be it bikies or other crooks in bed with foreign actors, or in some cases, even being commissioned to carry out anti-Semitic attacks.
I would have never imagined that outlaw motorcycle gangs would be on our target list.
That seems rather significant, that outlaw bikie gangs are now ASIO targets.
If you're tasked by someone from overseas and you're a criminal and you're doing that for a fee and it is a threat to security, then ASIO will be on your case. I reckon that's going to be a problem for you.
60 Minutes has learned the Jewish synagogue firebombing in Melbourne was carried out using the organised crime infrastructure and foot soldiers behind some of the tobacco war arson attacks. There has been police intelligence and police comment that the anti-Semitic arsons may be linked directed by organised crime. Are we talking about the same thing?
Well, I'm not going to comment on specific cases. The reason why I was free to share that with you, yes, I'm sending a message to them. If you're involved in this, we'll be on your case.
To be clear, though, you're saying bikies here may be working for foreign state actors in Australia?
They might be, and if there's a line of investigation, then we will actually investigate you heavily. But I can assure you, if you're in such an organisation or you're a criminal proxy and you're being used by a foreign state, you don't have to deal with law enforcement alone now. You've got my agency to deal with, and that's probably not welcome news to those individuals.
Iran has used the Hells Angels bikie gang to carry out acts of violence, acts of murder in North America. Are you aware of Iran teaming up with bikies here?
Well, I won't comment on the specific case, but I will in the context of what I talked about nation states using criminal proxies. We've seen evidence of that overseas, and we have grave concerns about that here.
You very deliberately, in your annual threat assessment, name Iran and Russia. The great omission is you naming China, surely our greatest intelligence adversary. Why not name China?
Well, there are multiple countries attempting to conduct espionage and foreign interference in this country, so I'm not going to call out just one. I get why people might want to know who's on the leaderboard or who's doing the most of it and who they are, but for a whole range of reasons, we won't always publicly attribute them.
And yet you all but called out China. You describe precisely what China's intelligence services do: harass the local Chinese community, steal defence secrets, meddle and seek influence in Australian politics. Why not just go the next step, simply name China and then move on?
Well, there are a number of countries that harass their diaspora community in this country, a number of countries who attempt to steal defence secrets, including some friendly nations. So it's not just one country doing that, so it's not as simple as that.
The Chinese ambassador, very unusually, was a special guest at your annual threat assessment. Why invite the ambassador from our greatest adversary? Were you sending China a message?
I'm sending messages to any foreign nation. If you are a foreign intelligence service and you have an interest in targeting AUKUS in particular, or anything else for that matter, we are watching, we will find you, and when we see you, we will deal with you.
Political sources have confirmed to me that you took a secret trip to China in mid-2023 and met with the most powerful intelligence official in the country and pressed him on Beijing's hostile activities here in Australia. Did you make the trip? And if so, why not disclose it?
So firstly, we have relationships with some 365 foreign services, domestic services, military services and law enforcement intelligence units in 131 countries. And some of those include relationships with countries that are problematic for us, which allows my officers and myself to have some very serious conversations in private dealing with these particular matters.
You're not ruling out that you made that trip, you just don't want to talk about it?
I won't talk about any of those trips that I do in that relationship.
When you meet a head of a famed intelligence service like the Chinese intelligence service, do you ever ponder, well, who's playing who?
Oh, that's the intelligence business, is it not? It's kind of, you might be having a good, serious conversation. You might even have a few moments of you think, oh, it's going my way. And then you know you've got to catch yourself and realise, no, you're dealing with intelligence professionals. And our job actually requires us to manipulate sometimes to actually get the outcomes you're looking for in your national interests.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Absolutely.
Hello, I'm Nick McKenzie. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.